Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Sharpening Guide. Today, we're going to clear up the little mystery from my unboxing video of the Alpha and Endela sharpening stones. Before we get started with the video, I just want to take a moment to say a huge thank you to all my subscribers and everyone who watches, likes, and supports my channel. Your support truly keeps me motivated to keep creating and improving. Every like and new subscriber truly makes my day. So let's start with the video. To properly test these stones, I bought several Spyderco knives in different steels, and the first candidate for today's sharpening session is the Spyderco Endela in K390 steel. This is a high-performance tool steel with a significant amount of vanadium carbides. These carbides are extremely hard but also quite brittle, so we need to be especially gentle when sharpening to avoid carbide fracture under microscopic examination. I wasn't really into Endela's factory scales, so I'd already ordered some custom ones personalized for me. I'll be unboxing and installing those in a separate video. But today, the focus is entirely on the TSProf Alpha sharpening stones. These stones are unique because they use a resin bond combined with rubber, optimizing material removal, especially for steels with high vanadium carbide content. With steels like K390, aggressive material removal can lead to carbide fracture, which negatively impacts edge performance. That's exactly why I chose these stones for even better results on special steels. Once we finish sharpening with the Alpha stones, we have a few options for refining the edge further. We can either use wood blanks coated with diamond emulsion ranging from 1 micron down to 0.25 microns, or finish with leather. Since I have no prior experience using these stones with K390 steel, I'll decide spontaneously at the end based on the results we achieve. So stick around. Before we get started, we always begin with a best test to measure the knife's factory sharpness. I haven't used this knife yet, so this will be a great benchmark. For consistency, I always use a 100-gram weight to maintain equal thread tension in every measurement. I lower the knife as slowly as possible to get an accurate reading. A factory edge with a best score of 150 is seriously impressive. Spyderco sharpens their knives at around 17 degrees per side, but I can't remember ever seeing a factory edge with such a low score. I'm really excited to see how much we can improve this edge through sharpening. Let me bring you in closer, and then we'll get started. Alright, everything is set up. The knife is securely clamped, and I've wrapped the handle with self-adhesive bandage material for protection. To safeguard the blade around the clamp area, I've used a combination of black tape and the bandage one, which works really well in this case. Now, when it comes to clamping Spyderco knives, some people prefer spring clamps, but I personally like to use standard clamps whenever possible. I'll also be testing a single clamp setup to see if it provides better results as the double spring clamps in comparison. We'll be sharpening at a 17-degree angle, and to ensure we're hitting the angle correctly, I always mark both sides of the edge with a red marker. For steels with a high vanadium content, it's generally best to start with a 320 grit stone or finer, as coarser stones increase the risk of carbide fractures. However, since this is the first time sharpening this knife, I'll be starting with a 125/100 micron stone. This is often necessary with Spyderco knives, as the tip and heel areas usually require more material removal to create an even cutting edge during the initial sharpening. The factory sharpening near the heel doesn't look great, so I'm curious to see how much work will be needed to fix it. Let's begin with the 125/100 micron stone. Before setting the angle, we use the sharpening stone to adjust the thickness compensator. To set the angle, I place the axe cube in the stone holder and zero it out. Then, it goes into the designated mount on the Kadet, allowing us to easily and accurately set the angle. I'm zeroing it out here once more so I can later read the angle directly from the stone holder. This way, when I later switch to my strop, I don't have to use the thickness compensator, but can simply adjust for the difference manually by adjusting the hinge unit. Today, we're also testing the TSProf sharpening oil for the first time. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know how long I had to wait for this oil, so I ordered multiple bottles right away. Using the right sharpening oil helps the stones work more efficiently by keeping the surface lubricated and preventing clogging. I also picked up their special cleaning oil, which has a different consistency and helps remove metal debris from the stones, keeping them in optimal condition for future sharpening sessions. Now we can get started. The good news is that we're hitting the factory angle well, so there's no need for major adjustments. I'll begin by refining the heel section first. If you ever need to reshape part of a blade, take your time and avoid focusing on a single spot for too long, as this can lead to inconsistencies in edge geometry. Instead, always distribute the material removal evenly along the entire cutting edge. The 120 micron stone is performing really well. Combined with the sharpening oil, it's producing excellent results. The tip on the Endela has a really nice profile, and I want to preserve that. To prevent rounding the tip, I use my index finger as a guide, placing it just below the tip and stopping my stroke the moment I feel the stone reach that area. Now, let's switch to the other side. The burr is clearly visible along the entire edge. At the tip, it's only lightly formed at first, but we'll refine that with the next stone. As always, I flip the burr to the other side before continuing sharpening. This minimizes stress on both the sharpening stone and the steel. Unfortunately, this knife was ground very asymmetrically from the factory, both at the heel and the tip. Because of this, we'll need to sharpen it multiple times to even out the edge as much as possible. When sharpening a knife for the first time, my general approach is as follows. Once I've formed a burr on both sides, I switch sides again, break the burr, and then make smooth, even passes from heel to tip. This ensures a consistent scratch pattern across the entire edge. The idea is that when I move on to finer stones, the burr should form immediately on the opposite side with minimal effort. As always, I apply no pressure at all and let the sharpening stone do the work. This is especially important with these stones because of their special resin bond, which could be damaged under excessive pressure. Now, I move on to the 80/63 micron stone. Before switching to the next stone, I always clean the edge to prevent residual particles from contaminating the next sharpening stone and negatively affecting the scratch pattern. The stone works exceptionally well, it's efficient and removes material quickly. In fact, I already have a specific plan for my Par 3, where I'll need a lot of material removal, so stay tuned for that upcoming project. Next up is the 40/28 micron. Before purchasing these stones, I did extensive research and spoke with other sharpening enthusiasts. The feedback was unanimous, everyone was impressed. These stones perform noticeably different compared to others. The scratch pattern is incredibly even, material removal is fast, and the efficiency is remarkable. I'm still not entirely satisfied with the heel area. But rather than removing too much material just to fix a minor imperfection, I'll leave it as it is. After all, this knife, because of its steel, will become one of my regular test knives, meaning I'll be sharpening it many times in the future anyway. Now, moving on to the 20/14 micron stone. Since these stones tend to absorb a bit more oil during their first use, I apply a little extra. I'm spending more time with each stone as needed to properly evaluate their performance. That said, they work incredibly fast and leave an exceptionally fine and consistent scratch pattern. I've rarely seen such perfect results, especially considering the minimal effort required. Next, I move to the 10/7 micron stone, making sure to thoroughly clean the blade beforehand. This prevents cross-contamination and ensures a perfect scratch pattern. I'm still not completely happy with the heel, but for today, I'll have to live with it. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but by the time I reach the 10/7 micron stone, the edge's surface is so finely polished that the sharpening oil no longer spreads evenly. Instead, it starts forming droplets. That's fascinating, and at this stage, it takes a lot of sensitivity to even feel the burr. Now onto the 5/3 micron stone, the second to last stone for today. Since K390 is not stainless, and I've been using alcohol for cleaning the blade, which removes the factory oil protection, I'll be applying a special blade cleaner that contains oil. As soon as I finish sharpening, I'll thoroughly clean the knife and apply this oil to prevent rust. Finally, we move to the 2/1 micron stone. I'm really curious to see the final result, both in terms of polish and the feedback of the stone. At this stage, I have to be extra careful when handling the blade because it's already razor sharp. Even after the 5/3 micron stone, the edge had a strong mirror finish, but this stone takes it to another level. The microscopic image after this stone is really impressive. The polish of the edge is crazy. I'm sure you'll find them just as surprising as I did. Achieving such an incredible finish this quickly and effortlessly is truly fascinating. I've been sharpening knives for over 10 years and have tested countless sharpening stones, diamond emulsions, leather strops, and more, but this is on a completely different level. If you're looking for a quick sharpening session, these stones require a bit more care and a slower, more deliberate technique. If speed is your priority, I definitely recommend the MS1 Diamond Stone series instead, but to be honest, I'm absolutely blown away by how well these sharpening stones perform. Now that the edge is refined, I move on to burr minimization. I always start at the heel and work toward the tip using the lightest and most even strokes possible. At this stage, my biggest question is how to proceed after minimizing the burr. I actually suspect that my leather strop coated with 1 micron diamond emulsion might be leaving deeper scratches than the final stone. The feedback from the stone during burr removal is excellent. Even though the burr is now extremely small, I can still faintly feel it on some parts of the edge. At this point, I'm working purely by feel and experience, taking my time to make sure the burr is fully minimized. The knife already feels unbelievably sharp. I'd say the burr is now completely gone and the edge is properly refined. Before moving on, I'm going to take a short break to plan the next steps for this video because the results from these sharpening stones leave no doubt about their performance and I want to proceed in the best way possible. I decide to start with my 0.5 micron leather strop, coated with stroppy stuff, and was recently reconditioned and freshly applied just like the 0.25 micron strop from Diapoli. Since we removed a fair amount of material from the edge, I checked the angle again and it reads 17.2 degrees. That's now the reference angle for stropping. At this stage, it's crucial to thoroughly clean the blade of any sharpening oil and debris to avoid contaminating the leather strop. I pay extra attention to the heel area, making sure there is no oil left. I adjust the required stropping angle using the hinge unit to exactly 17.2 degrees. With this leather, I have the best results stropping at the exact same angle I sharpened with. Normally, it's advisable to lower the angle slightly by about 0.1 to 0.3 degrees. When stropping, I use the reduction technique. I start this time with 18 strokes per side. In the next round, I gradually reduce the number of strokes to 14, then 8, then 5, and so on, finishing with just 1 stroke per side. To finish, I do a few alternating passes. This method has worked really well for me, and the fine diamond emulsion takes a little time to fully take effect, but the final result is impressive. With coarser emulsions, it's important not to do too many passes since they work much more aggressive. Before moving on to the next leather, it's important to thoroughly clean the blade to prevent any grit contamination. The most important thing when stropping is to apply absolutely no pressure, especially if you're doing it at the same angle as sharpening like I do, otherwise you risk rounding off the edge. Also, be careful not to overdo it, as overstropping can actually reduce sharpness. That concludes the stropping process. I remove the knife from the clamps and put everything away. But before we move on to the best test and the cutting test, I want to quickly show you how I use the cleaning oil. Using the sharpening stone holder makes this step much easier. I gently secure the stone in place, being careful not to over-tighten it. This is important to avoid bending the aluminum backing plate. Once it's properly secured, I apply a few drops of the cleaning oil to the surface of the stone. Almost immediately, you can see the oil working, lifting out the remaining metal particles and debris left from sharpening. The cleaning oil is specially designed to deeply penetrate the pores of the sharpening stone and lift out embedded residue that regular cleaning might leave behind. Unlike sharpening oil, which is used during the sharpening process to reduce friction, cleaning oil is used afterward to fully restore the stone's performance. Its low viscosity allows it to reach deep into the pores and break down stubborn buildup. Just a few drops make a big difference. After letting it sit for a moment, I wipe the stone down with a clean cloth. It's surprising how much residue still comes off, even though I had already cleaned it earlier using sharpening oil. This really shows how effective the cleaning oil is. It helps bring the stone back to a much cleaner state and keeps it performing at its best. The sharpening stone holder is something I highly recommend because it makes the entire process much easier and reduces the risk of dropping the stone. It provides a stable grip, allowing for more control, especially during cleaning. So let's move on to the bests and cutting tests. I just finished doing some cut tests with the knife, and honestly, I got a bit carried away. The sharpness was so impressive that I didn't stop at just slicing paper and paper towels. I went on to cut through a bunch of cardboard and rope as well. Unfortunately, in all that excitement, I forgot to perform the best test beforehand. So now, even though the steel has excellent edge retention, we probably won't hit a surprisingly low best value, simply because the edge has already seen quite a bit of use. That makes a difference, especially for best testing. But hey, let's see what kind of number we can still get. Honestly, it's actually a good sign when the edge is so satisfying that you can't stop cutting with it. Sure, not ideal for the video, but everyone makes mistakes. As always, I'm tensioning the test filament with a 100-gram weight and lowering the blade as slowly and steadily as possible. Alright, we have 115 bests. Considering everything I've cut with this knife, that's still a very solid result. It's hard to say what the reading would have been straight after sharpening, but judging by how it felt, I'd estimate it was easily around 90 bests or even lower. The other thing is the sharpening angle. A best score alone isn't the only thing that matters, because a lower sharpening angle will naturally produce a lower best score. If this knife had been sharpened at 15 degrees per side, instead of 17, the best score would be significantly lower. But that doesn't mean the edge would necessarily be better for real-world use. After sharpening the first time with the Alpha stones, I have to say, I'm seriously impressed. The feedback they give is exceptional. They cut fast, but at the same time, they really remove the material so nice gently. The polishing effect, it's on a whole different level compared to anything I've used before. The microscope shots of the scratch pattern from the 2/1 micron stone are just insane. They show a finish that's not only clean, but unbelievably refined. I was honestly blown away by how effortlessly these stones performed, and the kind of finish they left behind, flawless, with almost no effort required. It really doesn't get much better than this. I'm genuinely excited to put these stones to the test on some much more challenging knife steels. The sharpening oil really won me over. I've tested a lot of different oils over the years, but this one stands out, especially during the polishing stages, where the right oil can make a huge difference in both efficiency and results. It helps the stones maintain their cutting performance longer and noticeably enhances the final finish on the edge. The cleaning oil really impressed me as well. It definitely has its place in any sharpening setup. When you're investing in high-quality sharpening stones, it just makes sense to take proper care of them. The sharpening stone holder also proved its worth once again today. I use it really a lot, and every single time, I'm glad to have it. I'm really happy with the final result. If there's one thing that still bothers me a bit, it's a small issue at the heel and the tip. There was a slight factory grind flaw that I chose not to fully correct today, since fixing it would have meant removing more steel than I was comfortable with. It's a shame the factory grind wasn't consistent, but aside from that, I'm very pleased with this steel and how well it responded to sharpening. For the next sharpening session, I'll start with a finer grit to see if I can refine the edge even more and take the sharpness to the next level. The next knife I'll be sharpening with the Alpha stones is my Par 3 with 15V steel, which I'm really excited about. This knife hasn't been used yet, but it already feels extremely sharp, so I can't wait to see what kind of results we can achieve. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the sharpening content coming up. There's plenty more on the way, especially the custom scales for my Endela, so stay tuned for that. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to drop a comment or ask any questions you might have. Thanks for watching, enjoy your sharpening and have a great day. I'll see you soon here on the Sharpening Guide, and always remember, keep your knives sharp.